Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. You can always tell when it's a slow news day because the likes of Alan Shearer and co are talking about Celtic and them across the city going and joining the English league. Let's listen to what Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer had to say.
I've thought about this a few times. Do you think Celtic and Rangers should join the Premier League?
My take on it is no, and I'll tell you why in a minute.
I think it would be amazing.
Me too. I think with the size of those two giant football clubs, it would only enhance our league for the better. And the atmosphere...
That's because it's going to bring in more money, right? Sky is all about bringing in as much money as possible. You speak to any European football fan and any European club, and they're disheartened with the amount of money that goes into the English Premier League. That's the only reason that they're classed themselves as the best football league in the world, is due to the financial power that they do have due to Sky Television.
In those grounds is amazing. The support they have around the world is fantastic.
It's
so the
Celtic
two
fans all around
giant
the
clubs,
world.
and so absolutely, it would be brilliant if they could be in the Premier League. But I don't think we're ever going to see it.
No, I think the problem is how do you get them in, isn't it? I mean, what do you do? Just chuck two teams out and stick two giants in,
Yeah.
or do you get them to start in League Two or the Nations League, or what? How do you? It's a little bit unfair on, say for example, you stick them in next season and the top two that win the championship, particularly as one of them's Leicester, you just go, well, actually, you're not coming up this season because we're sticking Celtic and Rangers, and you certainly can't have the league up to 22 clubs because the fixture levels are already exhausting.
No, I think it'd be great. I agree with Alan. It'd be imagine going there every other week. It'd be brilliant.
Right, see the downside of them coming up to Scotland every other week is there's an unspoken thing about it that still goes on in England, and that's the English hooliganism. English hooliganism is something that's not covered by the press. They do still have their crazy away day fighting and all the rest of it, and it's something that I wouldn't like to see brought to the streets of Glasgow on an ongoing weekly basis. Because let's face it, every single week you would have away fans from England travelling into Glasgow. That would be complete mayhem. Please, Scotland would have a field day. Anyway, when I think about it, I don't want to go down to England. I think there's a lot better options for, especially Celtic, to make more money. One route is obviously through the Champions League on an ongoing basis. But when it comes to it, it is all about money with the English Premier League. And that's the only reason that they would invite the big two teams in Glasgow down. Let's see what they say about what it would actually mean to Scottish football.
Brilliant. But I just think what that would do for Scottish football, no disrespect, like Celtic and Rangers and the money that they will bring into the Scottish League, I just believe it'd be entertaining in the Premier League, but I think Scottish football would be dead after that.
Yeah, for Scottish football, it would be the equivalent of the Premier League losing the Big Four or something, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But with that being said, right, there's many fans in Scottish football would entertain the fact that if Celtic and Rangers left, it would open up the league to different teams maybe winning the league in Scotland. Tell me what you think about that. There are other fans out there that would say, yeah, get rid of the two ugly sisters, as they call them. And they say, right, get rid of them, and it would open up the doors to like Aberdeen, Hearts. I would probably say Hearts on an ongoing basis would probably top the table because they're one club that generally finish about third, although Aberdeen did overtake them last season, but they're completely woeful this season. Would it then allow more investment into these Scottish clubs? I don't personally think so. I think it would have the adverse effect. Look, we've had 20 years of stadiums in Scotland being completely diabolical as a fan, from a fan's perspective. And I mean, I've been to every single ground in the top league over the last 20 odd years, 25 years. And do you know, it is not a pretty sight. And especially when you go to games in Europe and then you see the standard of the stadia around Europe, it is a poor man's show in Scotland.
4 of the big 6, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I think it sounds great, but
it's never going to happen.
Impractical.
Yeah, thank goodness they put that one to bed. It is never going to happen. And let's face it, there are other ways, like I said, for Celtic to make money, and that's obviously to get into some kind of European league, which has been knocked on the head by Mr. Peter Lawwell, who sits on one of the European boards. But we'll never talk about that anyway. Right, let's get on to some Celtic news. We have been going on for a couple of minutes. Let's talk about everything Celtic now. Now, one bit of news that is coming in. I've got to talk about this because you can tell it's a bad news week when the papers decide to say there's a bitter feud on Lewis Palmer's transfer. That's nothing to do with Celtic. Nothing to do with Celtic at all. It's about a club that sold him to the club that Celtic bought him off. So it's nothing to do with his Celtic too. It's nothing to do with Celtic, but they need the negative headlines. One player that has been talking about his rise to fame at Celtic is the one and only Charlie Mulgrew, who I have his signature on one of my Ultras scarves up there. When we had the Joseph Rafferty Celtic Supporters Club for Kirkcaldy, we had our anniversary do at Celtic Park, and we had the one and only Charlie McGrew, and rest his soul, we had Caesar there that night as well. I think that was one of the last nights that he actually did. Anyway, Charlie McGrew is a player that came through the Celtic ranks and then went off to Aberdeen, remember, in his younger days to go and ply his trade, and then came back to Celtic to be an absolute rock in the defence. Charlie McGrew's been speaking about the fact that, look, back in 2010, he found it the same way. Liam Scales is currently doing the exact same thing. What has Brendan Rodgers seen or saw in the one and only Liam Scales that Ange Postecoglou didn't? Or is it just purely down to luck and circumstances this season? Obviously, we've had a number of players that were out injured at the start of the season, and I think that's when, well, we all know it's the mainstay and the reason that Scales came into the team. Brendan Rodgers has admitted himself that Scales has been a complete eye-opener for the way that Scales is produced on an ongoing basis. Mr. Reliability is Scales at the back for us. But when you look at it, I did say at the start of the season, if he is not in contention for Player of the Year awards at Celtic, he'll be in contention for Most Improved Player. A bit like what Greg Taylor was when Ange Postecoglou came into Celtic. Scales has to be up there for Player of the Season with Celtic, not just because he's came on leaps and bounds. I mean, people always go for goal scorers, and you could go for the likes of Matt O'Reilly for Player of the Season. But at this half-term mark, I would say Liam Scales, for me, would tip my vote for Celtic Player of the Season, purely for the fact on the way that he's progressed in this team, that he's stood up to the plate, they stood up to the mark, and, he's living every Irishman's dream. Well, apart from the ones that all support English football. Anyway, we move on from that. Celtic transfer news. Is there any Celtic transfer news? It's all went a bit quiet with the Zidane Van Hooijdonk thing. I think the fact that Kyogo is now not away to the Asia Cup, maybe it's put the brakes on Celtic. It's all gone a bit quiet. Remember, all the players are on holiday this week. If you look at some of their Instagrams, it's nice to see that Benji Siegrist is away with his missus. I wonder what will happen to him. Another one's obviously Joe Hart. The Celtic manager has been talking about Joe Hart, and he'll have that conversation with Joe Hart towards the end of the season. We spoke about it in yesterday's video. We'll put that one to bed. We'll leave that towards the end of the season. Everyone knows at Celtic that we do need a goalkeeper going forward. I have said on this channel, Celtic will not go out and buy or spend money on another goalkeeper whilst we have 3 top goalkeepers at Celtic. I mean top, I just mean first team ready ones. Our 3 goalkeepers could walk into any first team anywhere they wanted. But we'll not talk about them. It's just what's the point. Anyway, there is another one, Nicholas Kunn from... I don't know about this one. There's absolutely nothing getting leaked out of Celtic. It is all just speculation. So there's no point adding it. Anyway, it is getting to that time of the year when the Dyson Maida, O, Rio Tati, Yang, and Marco Tilio will just be about to take part in the Asia Games, and we want to wish every single one of them all the best in the Asia Cup. Tell me what you thought about today's video in the comments. Tell me what you think about us joining. It's never going to happen. Let's not even talk about it. Let's put it to bed. It's been spoken about over the last 20 years. I would never want us to join that league on a personal basis. I mean, it's fine. I've been down to watch Celtic play down in England lots of times, and over the years we'll have humped quite a few of their big teams. I mean, even the last time that we came up against Manchester City, we drew 3-3 at Man City in the Champions League. That's where the money's to be made, in the Champions League, not going down there. And I mean, if we were to go down there, we would be top 6 within 2 years. When you give us the kind of money that they get, and this is an argument that people say, Celtic would never make it, they would get relegated. Give us the money that the English Premier League teams get into the club, right? Even the bottom team, give us that same money, put us on a level playing field with the same money, and we'll see where we could go. But it's never going to happen. Like they said, like Shearer, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't like him. Like Shearer said, it's never going to happen. So on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, all around the world.